Here's something that fell into my lap this morning, courtesy of one of my customers who I fixed a stereo for. This is a 1993 RCA Colortrak 26-inch console television. Uses the infamous CTC 177 series chassis, the one that had such a problem with bad ground connections inside the tuner shield. The guy that gave me this set said lightning hit it and it was totally dead. So, you know, it could be a simple fix or it could be burned up. So in a few minutes we'll determine if this video will turn into a success story or will this be another crash and bash video. Cabinet looks to be in pretty nice shape. Got a little place here on the front, but nothing major. Of course, there was a time I could have got a couple $100 for this TV if I got it working, but if I get it working now, maybe I'll get lucky and make enough money off of it to buy a few capacitors for some of my vintage repair projects, or I may end up just giving the thing away. And yeah, it rained last night and water came into my basement, but oh well, I know how to be careful, so turn it around and look at the back of it. Here's the back, and I can tell that somebody's already been in it. The screws are missing. Now that could be from the owner of this set taking the back off and not knowing what they were doing and putting it back together, or it could have been a repair person that pulled the back and determined that the chassis was fried and didn't bother to put the screws back in. But at least this set does have inputs for a DVD player. Okay, let's plug this set up and see if the owner was actually telling the truth about it being dead. Alright, power. Yep, it's totally dead, so I guess he knew what he was talking about. Okay, let's pull the back and see what we're up against. Only thing holding it on are these twist tabs. And you see some screws laying around back here, so yeah, somebody's been in it. Here's some paperwork. Chassis still bolted down, so that's a plus. Yeah. This is quite a difference from the old vacuum tube TVs from the 60s and 70s that I liked so much. Those TVs, the chassis took up most of the inside of the television. On these more modern sets, you've got one little printed circuit board, one big CRT, and a whole lot of wasted space. Here's the chassis removed from the television, and this is the integrated tuner. It's actually built onto the circuit board. Other manufacturers used a separate tuner module that's soldered onto the board, but not Thompson. They had to be different. And the result of this is faulty ground connections on the tuner shield, which is a result of the heating and cooling down of the set. And over time, those connections break loose and cause all sorts of problems. It only took Thompson about 10 years to figure that that was a bad idea, and they went back to a standard tuner. Okay, now the moment of truth. Let's flip this board over and see if the underside is burnt to a crisp. Looking at the bottom of the circuit board, nothing appears to be torched. A lot of times when lightning hits these sets, it'll just literally burn the traces right off the board, and I've seen some circuit boards that had been hit so hard that it literally turned the board to charcoal, like a whole big area here. Since this one's obviously not fried, this might be worth looking into. I'm not going to do much to it. You know, if there's too much wrong with it, we'll junk it, because the TV's not worth that much, and it's too new of a set for my collecting interest, but we'll give it a few minutes of my time. Okay, appears to be what's going on here is the switching power supply is not starting up. We are generating raw B+ voltage to the main filter capacitor, but that's as far as it goes. In fact, I have the chassis totally unplugged right now, and when I measure across the main filter capacitor, that sucker's holding a 166 volt charge, which could be nasty. And that tells me that this power supply is not working, because if it was, the capacitor would discharge on its own when power was removed from the television. So obviously there's not an adequate load placed on the filter capacitor, or else it would discharge. Now, I've run into this problem before, and it's usually due to this STK regulator IC, or there are a couple of resistors that can open up that feed voltage to the regulator IC, and that's what I'm going to check now. I hope it's the resistors and not the IC. And it looks like I found the problem. It appears that R104 is open, and now we'll look at the schematic and I'll show you what circuit R104 is in. Here's the power supply schematic, and here is the voltage regulator IC U4101. It's an STK 730 series IC. And here is R104. It's a 1.5 megohm resistor. One side of the resistor connects to the main filter capacitor, so it has raw B+ voltage on one side, and the other side connects to pin 4 of the regulator. We should have 2.2 volts there. Well, we don't have that, so if that voltage is not present, the regulator will not start, and therefore no load will be placed on the power supply, and that's why this big capacitor right here, C4007, was staying charged. Now, this is a fairly common problem on this set. I've seen this resistor open several times in the past. So, let's see if we can find a 1.5 megohm resistor, and maybe we'll get lucky here. I couldn't come up with a 1.5 megohm resistor, but I was able to come up with a 1 meg resistor and a 510 k ohm resistor, and with those wired in series, that gives us very close to the needed value. So I'll put this in the chassis and see what happens. Okay, the resistor has been replaced. You can see it standing up there next to the filter capacitor. And one other problem I need to address before I test this, I noticed the degaussing thermistor is missing. All that's left are the 2 stubs where it used to be, and that's no surprise. Those were bad about crumbling apart. So now let me look through my junk stash and see if I can find a degaussing thermistor. Okay, we're plugged in. Let's turn it on and see what happens. And these RCA power buttons are notorious for cutting it on and turning it right back off, which is, I think, what just happened. There we go. Beautiful. It'll look more beautiful if I can connect a converter box to this and get a signal to pass through it. Okay, we're almost back in business. When I connected the DTV box, I had absolutely no signal, just snow. And out of frustration, I whacked the tuner shield with my nut driver, and the picture popped back in. So apparently this set suffers from the same loose connections in the tuner that all of these suffered from. So I'll have to fix that before I officially consider it fixed. But yeah, not bad at all. And here's the bottom tuner shield that we need to unsolder in order to gain access to the ground tabs of the tuner that need to be resoldered. And here we are with the cover removed. And it's obvious this has been soldered on before, but we're going to solder on it again. We need to resolder every one of these ground connections around the perimeter of the shield, along with these stakes right here where the shield cover solders in place, and that should take care of it.
Introducing the new
Okay, here we are reassembled back together and everything's working fine. All ready for a new home.
Switch your car insurance to Geico and we can help you save on boat and motorcycle insurance too. Other insurance companies qualified and experienced. Make the
since you got out of that car. Expansive.
Not stupid enough, Sarge.
At 15 degrees Sunday.
Remember.
Road here as father, and I don't want to miss any of it.
Joys of DTV. Can't even get a strong enough signal from a local station to even give us a watchable picture here. Oh, I'm sorry, that was an out-of-town station, excuse me, but the local station has been acting about as bad. Okay, there you go. 1993 RCA color television repaired and ready to go. Thanks for watching, and more to come later.
Just this week.
Yeah, this is Radio TV Phono Nut, and I'll admit this is highly unusual for me, but tonight we have a Samsung 32-inch LCD TV on the bench from 2012. This was given to me a few nights ago. The guy said it just started acting up, and he called a local repair shop, and they told him it was either a bad panel or a bad sensor, and that he'd be looking at least $200, and he'd be better off to buy a new TV. So let's fire it up and see exactly what happens here. If I can get to my outlet. Here we're powered up. So it fires up. Screen lights up, it shuts down, then fires up, screen lights up, shuts down again. Now, I don't claim to be an LCD TV repair expert by any sense of the word. Actually, I don't consider myself an expert in anything, but from what I can tell about these LCDs, when they light up like that and shut down, it's usually a problem with one of the backlights or the inverter board that supplies power to the backlights. Now, this 32-inch TV is unbelievably light. In fact, this little 12-inch black and white TV probably weighs more than this 32-inch set. But this 12-inch black and white TV is 35 years old and still going strong. Here's the model number tag, manufactured August 2012. Not very old to be having problems, but as we know, a lot of these newer TVs don't last like the old ones did. So let's pull the back and see if I can find anything that's easily fixable. I mean, it was free, so worth a shot. If I can't fix it easily and cheaply, then we can EOL it. Okay, remove the back, and the first thing I see is this capacitor on the power supply board that's bulged up. So that'll be the first order of business, is to replace that capacitor, and maybe I'll actually get lucky. I'm not going to count on it though. Well, this is funny. While working on the 2012 junker, my junker from 1981 decided to start acting up. We all of a sudden lost sound, and we have a vertical roll. So guess what I'm going to be fixing after we do something with this thing. Okay, 47 microfarad, 160 volt, 105 degree. Let's see what brand this is. It's obviously not a Nichicon or a Panasonic. This is a Samwa brand, the ultimate in garbage capacitors. And we'll be replacing it with a good quality Nichicon 47 at 200 volts, high temperature. Well, looks like that did it, or at least it improved things. I'm confident enough that I'm going to go ahead and put this set back together and use it. Now, what I should do is just recap this whole board, get rid of all of these garbage SAMWA capacitors, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'll just use the set until it dies and then worry about it then. It's not like I have any money in it. Or I might try to sell the set and make $1 off of it. Yeah, I like that idea better.
I'm like Dan Steph. I can do that new tonight.
Well, I think that did it. Unfortunately, the only button on this set that I can find is the... Well, wait a minute. Maybe this is something. I thought that was a power button. So I'm not used to this modern technology. Okay, I figured it out. It's a one-button-does-all kind of thing. See if we can pick up any stations here off of the air.
Follow News Center and Other on Facebook at WTOK.com. ITOK too.
City's war on crime. The worst criminal of...
Barry Allen, and I am the fastest man alive.
Hello. In the traditional motion picture, usually defeated.
Welcome to Martha.
This is many female night jam.
No kidding. 100 years of children's book, and it's still all they got.
Well, that's all the channels that's available.
Two guys in a muscle car? All right, move on. You're embarrassing me.
Brother Cameron?
Here's the old capacitor. It reads 5.5 microfarad. Should read 47. So yeah, it's exhausted itself. Okay, just a few notes on capacitor replacement in these modern TVs before we leave this. When you replace an electrolytic capacitor in a modern television or any other modern electronics for that matter, you want to try to go with one that's high temperature, at least rated at 105 degrees Celsius and low ESR. And you want to go with a name brand cap such as Nichicon or Panasonic. These SAMWA caps are the result of bean counters and they're garbage. And when you want to replace the capacitor, you want to make sure to observe correct polarity. Most all modern caps have the negative end designated by a band on the capacitor. You want to make sure the new capacitor is installed the same way. Otherwise, you could be in some big trouble. And also take note that a capacitor can be perfectly flat on top and still be bad, so don't overlook that possibility. We just got lucky on this one that it was bloated out the top, and obviously that one's bad. And to replace the capacitor, you'll need some common hand tools such as a screwdriver to remove the back and the power supply board, and you'll need a pencil soldering iron. You don't have to have an elaborate soldering station, but you do need a pencil soldering iron suitable for working on printed circuit boards. And some desoldering braid would help. I use the Chemtronics brand, and some rosin coil electronic solder is necessary. And you'll use the desoldering braid to remove the solder from the old capacitor. You just simply lay the desoldering braid on top of the solder joint, and then place the tip of your soldering iron on top of the braid until you suck all of the solder up. Then you remove the old capacitor, install the new capacitor, bend the leads back, resolder the new capacitor in place, or should I say solder the capacitor in place. We're not resoldering anything. And then once it's soldered in place, you use your wire cutters to cut off the excess leads, put the board back in the set, and hopefully you'll be in business. Okay, now that we've repaired the Samsung, let's see what's wrong with our shop TV. It's a pretty safe bet this will probably be the only video on YouTube where you'll see the repair of a modern day set and the repair of a vintage TV, both in the same video. Okay, we have picture, static when we turn the volume control, but no audio. Maybe this TV got ticked off because I had a newer TV on the bench and it decided it would stop working. So let's open it up and see if we can find the problem. Okay, they were nice enough to put a parts location diagram inside the back of the set. You can see we have a sound IC, which is basically the sound IF circuitry. We have a sound regulator transistor, not quite sure what that is. We have a driver transistor, and then we have two output transistors. Well, we know the final audio stage is working because we get a buzz whenever I can touch one of the pins on the IC and get a buzz. So I highly suspect, based on past experience, that this IC is probably the problem. Whenever I was a kid, I used to pick up these little 12-inch black and white TVs at yard sales for $1 or $2, and then I'd bring them home and fix them and sell them. And this audio IC was a common failure. One of them was an NTE 712. I think there were 2 or 3 of them, but I remember one of them was a 712, and it would go bad and cause the problem that we're having here. As you can hear, we're getting a buzz, so that tells us that the final output stage is working. And if you don't know what you're doing, you don't need to be probing around with a TV inside of a TV with your finger on the metal probe, but this is a low voltage area where there's no danger of me getting shocked. But if you don't know what you're doing, you could very easily get zapped. Here's the original IC, and it indeed crosses over to an NTE 712, which I happen to be lucky enough to have one. Not sure this is the problem, but since we have the part and it didn't cost us anything, we're going to put it in there and see what happens. Now, if I had a schematic to this set, I would do a little digging before condemning the IC, but since this part was such a high failure part back in the day, I'll just go ahead and replace it, and if it don't fix it, I'll just put the old part back in it. Okay, I finally got the other IC in, which I think was a used one actually, but hopefully it was good. And it took me a better part of an hour to do because of these staggered pins on the original. The replacement had the pins straight in a row, so I had to bend each pin back, and trying to get it lined up was a major pain in the butt. In fact, this TV come real close to being EOL'd a time or two. So if the part fixes it, great. If it doesn't fix it, it can just stay in there because I'm not going through that realignment process again. So now the moment of truth. Alright, let's see. Well, it appears that solved the problem. We now have audio again. But we have retrace lines in the picture, so what's going on with that?
Section here on volunteer opportunities.
Well, the picture's back, but we have retrace lines when you turn the brightness up, as you can see.
At risk? No, don't like the direction.
But who knows, I could have broken a wire during all of this because I was highly frustrated. You know, this may be the problem. I believe I broke one end of the lead off. It's going to this neon bulb that attaches to the CRT socket. So let me dig around and see if I can find another neon bulb somewhere. Okay, that neon bulb replacement took care of the retrace lines, as you can see.
And when I found out you were dating my ex-husband, I thought, oh my God, I'm such a big fan.
Okay, the workbench TV is back in operation until the next time. I don't want bounce, I want...
Oh, but not this time.
I want cozy TV. That's the only channel worth watching. So yeah, this is one instance where the more modern TV turned out to be less of a pain in the butt than the older TV, but at least we have our workbench TV back going again. Alright, there you go. Thanks for watching, and more to come later.